Okay, so here's Erro. He's 9. He's been ridden a bunch of times, and there's been some times where he's thrown his rider off. And so I'm just showing some basic stuff before saddling. And this right here is a principle that is based on a Ray Hunt principle, which is make the right thing easy and the wrong thing more difficult. So the right thing would be to just go over there and like throw the saddle pad on and he wouldn't have any issues. However, what if this was the way? I'm just being silly and goofy and / creative. I guess that's where the bandana comes from. It's not my gang that I'm a part of. It's just helps me with my creativity and keeps wind out of my hair. So I'm just asking Erro to just deal with that. He's pretty sensitive around the ears, and that kind of stuff can show up in the saddle in unique ways. And so what we're looking for is licking and chewing and his head to come down. As soon as he softens even the slightest bit, that might be a muscle in his shoulder softens. It might be a soft blink of the eye. See him like looking away right here. We've got this, you may be able to hear it in the video, but we've got this little tin roof thing that's clanking around, and he kind of remains a little bit attentive to that. And so there I'm checking, like, do I see any muscle movements, and then I just kind of toss that up there, and this is fine. Now I've just pulled him out of the corral, so it's not like I've done any warm-up or anything with him. This is just like if you went and grabbed him right out of wherever you're going to get him from, this is what we'd get. So I'm just going to quickly saddle up. And see there, just very softly, I asked for his attention to be on me. And I'm going to ask for it again. So even though I'm like working on other things, my self-awareness is very high, therefore it allows me to be very aware of him. And there was something, I went to reach under there and he kind of moved, and it could have been a little fly or something, but I was just double checking, like, do you got a question down here with this girth? And now he's kind of moving his feet around. Ideally we always want to see a horse standing still. Erro hasn't been ridden a lot. Part of that, he had an injury to his right front foot, and so that took him out of commission for a pretty long time. And the vet has now signed off on him being able to be ridden, but at a walk only. And so that's what I'm really trying to do, is I'm trying to just make sure that all this stuff is taken out. And I'm asking him to yield his hip, and I'm just doing that. I mean, it's cool that he can do that. I don't think he's been trained on that. He's just kind of following my lead, but I'm trying to get a good camera view, and then he keeps moving forward. My left hand is creating a boundary where I'm trying to help him. See how I petted him there? So I'm trying to help him, like, don't come into me. You're just trying to work with the body and what you got. And so it's just creating a boundary line right there, like, that if you step in this way, you're gonna hit this mighty wall of Hugh's left arm, which is mighty. It's not that puffy jacket. It's like pure muscle under there. That's what happens when you eat lots of Krispy Kreme donuts. You just get lots of muscle. So here, this is a really great way. Notice I didn't, like, I reached over his neck to hand myself that breast collar. That's the proper way to do that. It's a very effective, easy way. We know where all the tack is on the saddle. If you're saddling often, you know where all that stuff is, and so you don't have to look at it. You just know it's there, and that's a pretty efficient way of doing that. So anyways, I'm just tacking them up right here. All the while, I'm always checking, just like when that girth, like if there's a question that shows up, I want to answer that question. But right now he's doing great. And I am just going to grab this. He does pretty well ground tied, and that was kind of a test right there that I gave him, where I just dropped that rope and walked away, and I wanted to see what he would do, and he did about what I thought he would do. Here I'm just asking questions. I'm just going to put the reins on, just like, hey, how do you feel about that? And he feels totally fine. And now, again, we're going to present this and hang it on the ear for a second, and I'm waiting for him to self-regulate. I want something to soften. The head to come down, the eyes to soften, his muscles to soften. Release whatever you're doing, release on the softening. That you'll get more of the softening when you release on the softening. And so people are always wondering, well, what's the thing that I look for when the horse is softening? And it's like anything. His back hip might have shifted, and he might have leaned down on that back hip, and I would have released on that. So you're being completely self-aware of where all those feet are at, what the tail's doing, what everything is doing, and I'm just looking for softness all the time. Each horse will soften according to their personality, and each horse is different with their little personalities. And so one horse might soften by wiggling his lips around, and another might soften his eyes, and another might drop his back hip, and so you just kind of got to learn your horse. Now I'm putting on that bridle, but it wasn't fit to him, and so I'm just adjusting it, and he's doing awesome with it, so it fits him properly. Yeah, I'm going to adjust this side too. I'm going to drop that down one notch. And I'm waiting for that snow. See these mountains that's got snow up there? I'm waiting for that to melt so we can ride up there. Yep, now he's doing great. We're going to see lots of licking and chewing. Again, if anything falls out of camera angle, I can never really remember where the boundaries of the camera are. And I get so focused in on him that I'm not thinking about. So I'm sure some stuff's going to happen outside of the camera frame, and we'll just miss whatever was working on. So there's some licking and chewing. What I should do is bring that left rein, the rein that we're seeing right now. See how it's kind of taut? It's not very tight, but there's not really a slack in it, but there's a tremendous amount of slack on the other rein. I should straighten that out. There we go. So I did pick up on that. I must have been paying attention to something else. So here I'm just creating a boundary. See, notice, so it's really important to be gentle with your horse, but it's also really important to have firm boundaries. And so I think it was Buck Brennaman that said, gentle in what you do and firm in how you do it. A lot of people, they got the gentleness down packed, and then they got horses that just walk all over them and have no boundaries because they didn't have any firm boundaries. Here's what I'm doing right here is I'm just checking the softness in his neck. I don't want any resistance here, so I'm gonna, right here, my left arm is up on the horn of the saddle, and I'm softly, gently asking that nose to come in. There's a Buck Brennaman video that he does. I'm pretty sure it was like Eclectic Horseman. It's like a 2-minute video where I'll send it over. Maybe I'll put it in the link in the description of this video. It's fantastic. And it's just a thing you want to make sure you're doing all the time. He goes over the mechanics. It's like a 2-minute video. Buck talks about, why would you ever ride your horse if you can't ask for your horse's mouth right there? Now, I don't want these feet to move. See, I'm running into a little bit of resistance right there. Kind of like, imagine running into a little wall. And I just want that to soften. And so this is something that you got to feel more than watch on a YouTube video. Now you can see me practicing my Zumba moves. I'm terrible at Zumba apparently. But all I'm trying to do is add more pressure. Like, I just want to know, are you going to take off on me? What are you gonna do? I do this with all the horses. See, you come really wide on that, and then you cut in. So you're like doing this big wide half circle. I don't want him to move his feet. I'm checking to see if I'm freaking retarded in getting in the saddle. Like, he doesn't know what I'm doing, right? And so make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. So that's a difficult way of getting in the saddle. Like, what if I got to do my crazy Richard Simmons Zumba stuff before I get in the saddle? He doesn't know that might be my ritual, and maybe that's your ritual. It's every great horseman's ritual. But so I'm just preparing for like what could be show up in his life when he's at home, right? And so right there, see that little jerk of the face? Yeah, this might end up happening off camera. I was afraid of that. Anyways, it's as soon as he softens, then I'm gonna soften. If he ramps up, starts like jerking his face all around, I'm not gonna increase my Zumba moves. I'm just gonna stay the exact same. I'm just gonna stay calm and consistent. Yeah, I just decided it was easier to try to widen this camera angle. I'm just going to stay calm and consistent with it. However, when he begins to soften, then I'm going to soften. So I'm not going to follow his lead on ramping up, but I am going to follow his lead on softening down. Again, this is really good. If you like go to a clinic, they'll show you this. Get a good clinician and they'll show you this stuff. Now, I'm asking him, can I come in on this side? It's really, really important to recognize this. He does this a couple times. This right side, he's got some concerns on this right side. And all horses have, usually they got a concern on one side or the other. And so, go back and watch that little part. I don't just walk in. I ask, can I come in? See, he softens, and so I softened. What I would really like to do there is jump around, do some Zumba moves, eating too many Krispy Kremes. And so I need to do more Zumba moves. But he softened, and so I don't have any tasks to get done other than to follow his lead when he softens. And so any tasks that I've got in my mind, see, I in my mind, I wanted to go more. I wanted to do more jumping and everything. But then all of a sudden, he shut everything down. And I was like, oh, we want to shut things down? Awesome. We'll shut things down. And again, I want to reward him making the effort to even try to self-regulate under that kind of pressure. Right? It's like, oh my gosh, the dude with the puffy orange jacket's coming out to ride me again. And, oh, he's so terrible at getting in the saddle. His legs are flinging all over me. It's so annoying. It's like, dude, I want you to be able to self-regulate under that. And so when he softens under all that stuff, then I want to soften. Because then he starts to realize, oh, that's how I make Hugh stop doing Zumba, is I just need to soften, right? So I'm asking, what if I get louder? What if I get louder? And he's like, I can't handle it. And so then, just because you can't handle it doesn't mean that the problem goes away. It's when you soften that the problem goes away. I hope that makes sense. It's really, really critical to get that right. And if you get that right, you can use that principle on anything and you'll become a fantastic horse person. So now we're just going to do it on the other side. Exact same thing. He's a little bit better on his left side. He yields better with the rein. People think that the reins are their steering wheel. That's not true. And they also think that the reins are their brakes, and that's definitely not true. And we can talk about what reins are. And there's some really good horsemen out there who've made some great videos on that stuff. So again, I'm just like, this is how Hugh gets on the saddle, right? Just want to check things. Again, don't be afraid to look goofy and silly. There's no ego in horsemanship. I think there's ego in being cowboys and cowgirls, but there's no ego in being horsemen. And so do what's best for your horse. And I'm just preparing my horse for anything that may show up in his life. And there's some goofy people out there that probably want to ride your horse. And so get them prepared for those goofy people so that even the goofy people get to stay safe. And he gets to have a better, you don't want somebody trying to get on a horse like this out on the trail. That's the wrong time to be like, hey, can you deal with this? You want to deal with it in a calculated environment at home. So now we're just doing our homework. I'm just watching him down-regulate. He's just licking and chewing, he's probably like, no one has ever been this handicapped in getting on, like no human has ever been this dumb and klutzy. And so I'm just letting him process that whole thing and be like, yep, that's true. Deal with it, right? Self-regulate. See, an emotionally safe horse is a horse that knows how to self-regulate no matter the pressure. And an emotionally safe horse is a physically safe rider. So I want to present goofy pressure. I want to present goofy things that might create pressure in his life and then help him to learn how to self-regulate.